All right, let's talk about first offers. Thanks to Pete for the PowerPoint humor. The first problem with first offers is to make it or not. How do you know when to make a first offer and when not to? I grew up with the fatherly wisdom that I inherited was never make a first offer. You never make a first offer. The science that is coming out now suggests that's not the best approach. I do think that whether you're going to make a first offer depends a lot on your leverage in the case. But there's this concept called anchoring. Does everybody know about anchoring? Okay. Would someone like to recite on this topic? All those head shakers. Anne?
All right, well, it's my understanding that anchoring is a cognitive bias in which you are drawn, the parties are drawn to the first number that's on the table if it is, especially if it is marginally reasonable.
Good.
But even a totally arbitrary number, like a Social Security number, can have an effect and draw people towards that number in resolving
Right.
the price.
Very good. And so the idea is that he who puts the first number on the table is most likely to get an agreement that's closer to that number than whatever number your counterpart puts on the table. That's the theory. One of the best examples I can think of is you go to the car dealership, okay, and what do you see? You see the sticker price. That's the anchor. So you might shave $1,000 or $300, something off. You might get a little extra service as part of the deal, but that's the anchor that is used to jumpstart the negotiation. Now, in anchoring has become a really big topic. This concept came out of Daniel Kahneman's book. The Harvard people have taken it and run with it, and there's been quite a bit written about it. And by the way, the Harvard program on negotiation, if you go to their website, they have a newsletter that comes out almost every day, it seems like. You will be frequent, yes. But they will keep you abreast of what the cutting edge topics are in the field of negotiation. And anchoring has been a big topic. And one of the things in reading their literature, one of the things that I found interesting was that anchoring is being used in range offers. Now, think about that. I'm not familiar with, this was a new and interesting concept to me, a range offer. So for example, you're negotiating, if you were trying to get a job, you were negotiating salary, you might say, well, you know, and let's say you want to make $75,000 a year, that's your goal. So the prospective employee says to the employer, I hear jobs in this field are making somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 a year. Now that doesn't sound like an offer, it sounds like a suggestion, but that was an example used as a range offer. Think about that as a creative idea. In a divorce case, for example, can we agree that this estate will be between 55% and 60%, or 50 and 55? Something to try to isolate the range. Okay, first offers, you all know this, maximum plausible position. That's where you should not ask for more than is plausible. And I see this rule violated a lot. Justify the offer. Don't just send over something that says this is what we propose. Tell people why it's reasonable. You never know. You might get a dialogue going about what's reasonable and how to resolve issues. Keep it simple. The rule of cognitive ease, again, from Daniel Kahneman. One of my pet peeves is this happens in divorce cases. I was trying to negotiate on behalf of a doctor who was trying to sell a practice. And the buyers, their first offer was this long, complicated spreadsheet with footnotes. It was in like 6-point font. You know the kind. You can't print them out. You've got to manipulate the thing to print it out. No explanation, no bullet points. And I see lawyers who do this too. Don't send a spreadsheet. I traffic in Excel and spreadsheets pretty well, but not all of us do. Our clients don't. It is just, to me, a dumb way to make a first offer. It's not going to be persuasive. If you're going to use a spreadsheet, use it as a backup document, not as your primary offer document. But the real point there is keep it simple. State the problem before the solution. I believe this came out of Cialdini. This is really a good little tip, I think. State the problem before the solution. Here's the problem, and then here's my proposal for solving it. It's a real good approach. Goals are more important than bottom lines. We just talked about that. Remember the power of concessions. Why is it that competitive bargaining works? Well, because at the end of the day, we want to feel like we got them down, or we got them up, or you have to build concession points into a proposal. I used to have a client, I negotiated many deals for him, and I would put together a proposal and he would say, they'll never agree to that. And I'd say, exactly. I don't think they will either, but I want them to say no, and then we'll make a concession and hopefully get to a point of closure. All right, so the role of emotions, this has been a very hot topic. Number of books written in just the past few years. It all starts with a guy named Phineas P. Gage. Does anybody know who Phineas P. Gage is? Well, you must go back and Google Phineas P. Gage because his story is fascinating. 1848, Phineas P. Gage was working, doing construction on a railroad that was trying to plow through a mountain rather than going around it and blasting their way through. You see in the photograph this iron rod he's holding. Well, while he was working there, an explosion occurred, and that iron rod went through his cheek, out of the top of his skull, and landed 100 feet away. They took him to the doctor on the back of an ox cart. He showed up lucid, cogent, speaking, and after that, he seemed like he was sort of okay, except he wasn't okay. His personality had totally changed, and what the scientists of the day began to appreciate is that different sectors of the brain control different functions. So this essentially led us to, 150 years later, the notion that Aristotle was wrong. What do I mean by that? Aristotle was wrong. We do not make decisions based upon reason and logic. We make decisions based upon our emotional responses. Logic and reason have their place, but just not the place we always thought. In fact, based upon recent findings in neuroscience, emotions rule our decision-making. In other words, if they hook you up to an fMRI and ask you to make a decision, your amygdala is going to shine first, and that's where the action is in the emotional center of the brain. The neocortex is a justifier. The cognitive is a justifier. Now, this, again, was a real eye-opener for me because I've spent almost 40 years trying to persuade people with logic and reason. And when I come to think, well, wait a second. Now, of course, the jury trial lawyers, I think, really get this. You've got to appeal to people's emotional factors if you want to persuade them. How often do we spend time arguing with people about logic and, oh, by the way, I know the judge better than you do, and this, that, and the other, when what they're really concerned about is security, or will my children love me when this is all over, or some emotional factor there that you have to dig down and figure out. So, how did we translate this into action? Well, there are several approaches to this. Cialdini, in his book, Influence, says there are basically 6 weapons that he calls this the 6 weapons of influence. Reciprocity, consistency, social proof. Social proof means everybody else is doing it. You know, if 60 or 70% of the people in this room started walking out of here, like right away, the rest of us would follow suit. We wouldn't know why they're leaving, but we would leave because that's what everybody else is doing. That's what social proof is. Liking. We want people to like us. If we want to influence people, we have to get them to like us. How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we get people to like us? Well, one way is to find similarities. You grew up in Dallas, I grew up in Dallas. Where'd you go to high school? Oh, I went here. You know, if you can find common ground with people, you play golf, I play golf, whatever. If you can find similarities with people, then they will like you, according to the social scientists. They will, or at least you'll have a better chance. Authority, scarcity, those are fairly obvious. Now, I want to make sure to share this with you before we go. I'll get that. Is that the former judge? Oh, you know, I could hold you in contempt. Some judges get fined $50 for that.